Hey, Tommy.
What's going on?
Well, we got an interesting podcast/video today because we've been traveling our you-know-what off.
Yeah, that's right. So we've done so many things in a short period of time, including the Japan Mobility Show, which is big news for a lot of people because we not only saw some new cars, some future cars, but some really big news regarding brands, which is something that doesn't happen very often. And then you were just in Vegas.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. Fly from Tokyo right to SEMA. I never thought I could make SEMA worse, but I did.
You gotta be less grumpy about SEMA. Why are you so grumpy about SEMA?
Because SEMA is just so big, so huge. Literally, it could take you 20 minutes or a half hour to go from one side to the other. But there was big news there, so we got a lot to discuss. We've got a lot of actually interesting stuff that has happened in the last 2 weeks, and we're going to get to that. And then at the end, Tommy, while I was on the plane, I was contemplating names of vehicles that don't mean anything.
Yeah, good. And we've got a couple of cars we're thinking about buying, and we should talk about that in this podcast as well.
You know, Zach told me yesterday that we have bought and sold the most cars in a year.
Yeah, because you won't stop buying them.
Well, I'm done buying. But
You're not done buying. You keep buying them like left and right.
I did not buy an iMeV yesterday.
Yeah, you almost bought an iMeV yesterday, though.
It was at our donated car auction, and I thought it'd make a great headline. We just bought the worst electric car ever made.
Yeah, and
I went up to 2,000. And after that, I tapped out of it because, look, the thing had like 60 miles of range when it was new. Probably now, 10 years later, it was a 2014. How many miles of range do you think it has?
like 25.
15 kilowatt hour battery. No,
Yeah.
It's not worth 2,000.
But we also tried to buy this past week one of the rarest cars that's never been allowed to be sold. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you want to tell them that story?
Yeah.
This was also in Japan at 2 a.m.
Yeah, you called me to wake me up and then didn't buy the car at 1:30 in the morning.
I woke you up at 2 a.m. because let's take a huge step back. So about maybe 4 years ago, one of our viewers sent us an email with a real estate listing of all things in Atlanta. It was a house for sale, and it was a house for sale that was in a relatively bad part of Atlanta. So the house had been turned into kind of and we know this because we actually talked to the realtor, had been turned into a little bit of a drug den. People were using it to like shoot up drugs. And at one point, it was in a good neighborhood, and it belonged to, I believe, one of the, or at least one of the presidents of one of the historically black colleges in Atlanta.
It's Clark University.
Living in that house.
Yeah.
Anyway, the interesting thing about that listing was not the house. It was what was parked in the garage. What was parked in the garage?
So someone sent us this because they thought they saw a GM EV1 stashed away in the garage.
And they did.
So the EV1 is a really weird, small, quirky subset of automotive history. So back in the 1990s, General Motors was incredibly pioneering in their EV program. So long before Tesla came out with the Roadster, long before Nissan came out with the Leaf, General Motors tried this pilot project to lease out a very futuristic, all-electric, streamlined coupe to people in Arizona, California, only a couple of states. Now, this car story is best told by a documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car? Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Really popular documentary. There was actually a sequel to it as well. And the EV1 was quite famous not for its technological innovation, which it was pretty innovative, not because it could go 300 miles on a charge, it couldn't, but because the way GM handled the closeout of the EV1 program. So basically, you had a select group of people that got these cars on lease. They were incredibly passionate about it. And then GM, for whatever reason, this is what the documentary is about, decided to cancel the program altogether. They took back all the cars. Owners tried to track them down. They tried to chase them. They were literally following transport trucks to wrecking yards where GM was squishing these EV1s.
Yep.
I don't remember how many they made. I think it was somewhere around 1,000, maybe 2,000. 98% of them were turned into plastic cans, right? They were all squished, ruined, dead. But what General Motors did...
Hold on a second. I'm going to interrupt. Cole, I just texted you the link to this auction, which is going to be a very interesting part of the story. So if you could get that up on the computer at some point, I'd appreciate it so people can actually see why I woke Tommy up at 2:30 in the morning. All right, keep going.
What GM did is they crushed 99% of these cars, but there's a handful of them that they preserved and donated to universities for future study, right? Because it was a groundbreaking car.
But there's a catch.
There's never been a private sale. So they decommissioned these cars. They removed the battery packs. They chopped through a lot of the electronics, and then made sure that they could essentially never go on the road again.
Yeah, so you if you were a university, you got two things. You got the car, and then you got a box that had all the innards of the car, basically.
Yes, but those were also decommissioned.
Yes.
That's the key.
Yeah, like it would be hard to
was a
recreate
crate.
circuit boards.
And the batteries were gone. So
Yeah.
GM got rid of the batteries. Essentially, they don't want, these companies are so risk adverse. They don't want any liability when it comes to vehicles that shouldn't be on the road. So like prototypes, concepts, they all get crushed. These cars, they all got crushed except for a handful that went to universities to never see the road again.
So there's this listing, and there's a picture of the garage, which is all falling down. And in the corner of the garage is this green EV1 with a box next to it.
Yeah. So this was one of the cars that was donated to Clark University for research study, and ultimately fell into disrepair. That the university stashed it in the back of this dean's garage or whatever. Then the house kind of went into disrepair. Ultimately, like you said, it kind of became a drug den, got forgotten about. And then a viewer was looking for a house in Atlanta, stumbled upon this house, stumbled upon what he thought was an EV1, and emailed it to us. We almost fell off our chairs because he was right. There was a blurry photo, and in the corner was this green EV1.
Full of covered in bird poop. The garage is falling apart. It was just in a terrible state. But both the car and the box with basically the components of the car were in the garage. So that's when the massive hunt started for me, because first thing I did, of course, was pick up the phone and try to find the realtor.
Yep.
And then I have a friend who's in kind of the automotive journalism business who also knows Clark. I think he either went to Clark University or knows people like Clark. So I called him up, and we went on this massive hunt to try to find out what that car was and what was it doing there, and could we acquire it?
Right.
I was ready to buy that car. Unfortunately, by the time that we actually got a hold of anybody, the car had disappeared from the garage.
And nobody knows where. Nobody knew where it went. It was just gone. It was towed out of there. We didn't know where it went.
Yeah. So I talked to the realtor. I'm like, hey, I don't want to buy the house, but I'm interested in the car. And then he's like, yeah, the car's gone.
Yeah. So this is where things get interesting. That kind of went cold there. Although I did talk to a couple of people who are really in the know in the EV1 community. They did confirm this was a car that belonged to Clark University. Makes sense, right?
Yep.
Anyway, that went cold. And then that's when you called me.
Now, fast forward to last week. I'm in Japan. It's 2:30 in the morning, and there's a story that pops up on Drive. I'm jet lagged. I can't sleep. I click on the story, and lo and behold, there is this green EV1 for sale in using the auctions that we buy from. We use the Peak Auto Auction, which is the donated car auction.
Yep.
It's a Denver-based company, but basically they sell cars around the country for companies that are like tow trucks and wreckers.
Yeah, so if you're at a tow lot, someone abandons a car, go to Peak Auto Auction. They have a local auction. People can bid, and then you end up with, in often cases, a pretty bad car.
Yeah.
But somehow this car ended up at this lot. There was a court order. So if I recall, the Autopian actually did a really interesting story where they followed up and figured out what went on. There's a little bit of a legal situation going on.
I figured that what happened was it got towed from the house.
Yep.
And then it sat in some tow yard somewhere.
Yep. And the university didn't want to pay to get it released, is what I bet. Or
the people who knew what it was were gone.
Yes.
And eventually the tow company got a court order to sell it, and they were auctioning it off. And when I clicked, this was like 36 minutes before the end of the auction, and when I clicked on the auction, this is the car that we're talking about, and it's the same car that I believe that was in the house.
Yeah, it's got to be.
It's got to be. There's not a lot of these things in the wild. It was it was $36,000. I think
that's what the bidding was up to.
That's what the bidding was up to. And I was willing to go, show the interior, Cole, would you? You just went past it, yeah. I was willing to go to about $50,000 because I figured that this would be an incredible story. We could tell the story of the EV1. We could actually, maybe, go pick up the car, do a bunch of videos around it, and just, have a piece of American electric car history. It's something that, as an automotive journalist, I would be honored to tell. And back in the day, of course, GM did crush all these cars, but we do have contact with GM. So I thought that maybe if we buy the car and even actually call up GM, they now might be proud of the heritage that they were one of the first companies to come out with an electric car, and that they actually might work with us instead of suing us, because obviously a lot of the people who had these cars didn't want to give them up, and there was a lot of conflict between GM and the owners. And I thought maybe now there's enough water under the bridge that they may actually want to tell their story.
It's interesting you say that. I was just on another press trip,
yeah,
and I was talking to a gentleman who was really involved with this program when it was new, long time EV journalist, and he was saying that GM's relationship with the EV1 has gone back and forth a lot over the years.
Yeah.
So in certain eras of GM, they want to honor the heritage. They said, yes, we were really pioneering, we did this. And then other managements, like, we never want to acknowledge this exists. We never want to see this thing ever again. So depending on what era of GM you contact, you get very different results.
Well, and you can also play it out legally in your head. So I'm assuming that when GM donated these cars to the different universities, that there was a clause in there saying that they probably can't sell
They
it.
never could be sold, yeah.
Yes.
They were supposed to be crushed, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so technically GM still owns these cars.
There's an argument to be made. Now, I was just talking to the head of PR at another company about this to get his opinion. His thought was like, if a media outlet got a hold of this, GM wouldn't want to create the bad blood of trying to sue them.
That's what I figured. We have a good relationship with the PR team. They'd probably want to work with us. So I thought this would be a really interesting opportunity to tell the story of the first significant electric vehicle and put kind of like a period on the end of the story in a TFL way. So I was willing to go up to about $50,000 to buy this. And of course, I'm jet lagged. It's 2:30 in the morning, and that's a lot of money. We're not that wealthy as a company, and we're betting, a significant portion of our monthly revenue on making this video.
Monthly.
We're not Hoovy. That's what
Yearly.
I'm saying. Yearly. We're not
monthly. How much do you think we make in a month?
I know. We're not Hoovy. We're not, the Strand Man. We're not buying Bugattis, Lamborghinis, or Veyrons for that matter. And so that was a significant number. And you don't know if you can even get into a legal fight with GM, right? And then you got to pay attorneys. It could quickly, spiral into quite the mess.
So it ended up selling for $104,000.
Yeah, I tapped out at $50,000.
And I think a big problem was that it did end up on some of these big sites right at the end. Getting the call.
Okay, go get it. I'll keep telling the story. You got to get that sorted. So what ended up happening, of course, was that there were a lot of enthusiasts who love electric vehicles. Obviously, there's a whole world around electric vehicles, and this being kind of the holy grail of electric vehicles. I mean, think about the fact that you often want the one of one if you're a collector. Well, this is the holiest of holies when it comes to one of one electric vehicles. I think, like Tommy said originally, it's the only one that's actually been publicly for sale. The rumor is that there are people who own these things, and I think those rumors are right. They don't want to acknowledge that they own them because they could get into a spat with GM. So they're out there, but this one was being publicly sold. There was also, I think, a 13% buyer's premium on this. So when it sold for $104, you got to figure another $15,000 on top of that. So it went for about $120,000. And then if you want to, kind of read who bought it, that story is up on the Utopian. They kind of tracked down. Well, maybe Tommy, now that he's back, you want to tell the story about who bought it? I'm getting to that part of it. Yeah. Because that story was on the Utopian. They tracked down the guy who bought it, and he didn't want to use his name, obviously.
Right. I mean, I think so. He had planned to spend up to, he put a bid in of up to $156,000.
So we would have go be in 156.
Plus, I think 13% auction fees.
Yeah, 13%. So another 20,000.
But here's what's crazy about this car is I accidentally, and the Utopian did a much better job than I did, but I know the person who owned this car.
Yeah.
When it was new.
Okay.
So I had a friend in high school, and her dad was the original owner of this car back in the late 90s. This is VIN 212. And he knows the VIN because he's really passionate about this car.
Easy number, right? It's not a big, long ass.
No. His story is crazy. So he lived in Colorado, where we live. And he lives in Boulder, where we live. The problem is that GM never leased these cars to Colorado, right? It's supposed to be California, Arizona. But if I remember right, he had a sister or cousin that lived in Tempe. Mm-hmm. So he had her lease the car, and then he had it shipped up to Boulder so we could drive it around. There it is. Sawyer. That's the guy's name, Mr. Sawyer.
Okay.
Now, when GM learned that this guy had taken it out of the intended area, they were really, really upset. They're like, this car shouldn't be in Colorado. It's not intended to be. But he's like, what are you going to do about it, right? The problem is he had a ton of issues with it. as you'd expect from an early generation electric car. These were basically hand-built one-offs, all these EV1s. They were not intended to last a long time because it was a lease-only project, right? So he kept having to have the car shipped back and forth from Arizona. And after one of the failures of the high voltage system, GM said, we're done. Your car's done. We're not giving it back to you. So there was this big legal fight that ensued. He tried to get the police involved and at one point even the FBI involved. And ultimately, he didn't get the car back, right? GM won. But GM didn't destroy this car on purpose.
They donated it to Clark.
The argument that the Utopian and that Sawyer had was like they probably didn't destroy it because it was a court case. They were going to be destroying evidence. So this car ended up at Clark University, and then it was the one that ended up in the barn, and now it's in this private person's hand. But you can actually see what it looks like now. So it's at a shop. There's a giant hole in the windshield.
Yeah.
If you scroll up, you can see where the battery should have been. That's where the battery used to live in an EV1.
Well, this is why I wanted to buy it. There were all these, like sometimes a car finds you. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Sometimes you find a car, and sometimes a car finds you. And when I woke up at 2:30 and saw this story, I knew all this background information. I'm like, this car has found me, and so we should be buying it. That was another reason for it, but it was just too expensive. It's kind of in rough shape.
It's in terrible shape. And it's going to be really hard to recommission, but luckily, people are really smart, and I'm sure someone's going to get this thing.
How long before it
back
ends
on
up
the
on Bring a
road.
Trailer?
I think never.
You think that this person's going to actually keep it?
There's some really secretive EV collections I know of that have cars that they shouldn't have, and they never get sold publicly. They get traded hands like within this community.
So it's like initially there were something like 100 copies made of the U.S. Constitution, right? That were like
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, real copies. I mean, there is a constitution that was signed, but of course the founding fathers had to let the other states know, so they had copies of it made, and those copies are extremely valuable.
Sure.
And so if you have one of those and you're like Bill Gates, then it's very secretive because obviously they're so unique and so unusual. And you think this is the same thing with this one, where it's something that's so like contentious and so one of one that people aren't going to want to sell it.
I mean, yeah.
Publicly, and it'll trade hands privately and surreptitiously.
I mean, I'm sure you're going to see this car make it. I'm sure it'll be at Pebble Beach, right? Even though it's been decommissioned, people are smart enough to recommission.
I don't feel like the Pebble Beach crowd would appreciate this.
Not now, but in 25 years.
Yeah, maybe in 25 years.
This car will end up at Pebble Beach. I'm sure it'll end up at the Peterson.
I mean, it's kind of like the first Mercedes. You drove the first Mercedes.
I drove a copy of the first Mercedes.
Yeah, I don't think the first Mercedes exists.
No, it doesn't exist.
But it's kind of like if you actually had the first Mercedes, the first car. When electric cars, and I'm going to say something, hot take here, Cole, electric cars are going to take over internal combustion. They are. It's just going to happen because they're just much more convenient and easier, and your house is your gas station. There's just a ton of reasons. So at one point, this will be like the holy grail of electric cars. This will be the first one that was mass-produced and commercially sold.
Yeah, for sure. But
and I'm sure there were others that were mass-produced and commercially sold back in the 30s.
I mean,
I'm talking like modern.
I've no doubt, but it's also kind of like this car is very, very, very. It's actually very, very similar to the turbine car, right? In that it was leased out to people in very short quantities.
You're talking about the
Chrysler turbine car. Then the majority of them were crushed. A few were donated to universities.
Jay Leno has one of those.
Decommissioned, yeah. And it's probably worth $9 or $10 million. The problem is fundamentally, the turbine car is just much cooler, right? That's
this thing was not good.
That's a car with a jet engine.
Yeah.
That was designed by, I think it was Ghia did the body on that, or Pininfarina or someone. So it's a beautiful design. The EV1 famously looks like a snake trapped under a rock. Right, goes 70 miles on a charge, and was just kind of a little footnote in EV history. No doubt it's going to be really valuable, but I mean, I'm sure when I'm your age, I'm going to be kicking myself. Why didn't we spend $150,000?
Because we don't have $150,000.
I know, but when it's worth $5 million, we're going to be like, dang, I wish we did. Yeah, it was a really interesting story. I wish it hadn't happened at 2 a.m. because then I didn't sleep that night at all.
Yeah, neither did I, so that didn't matter. I wasn't sleeping.
So now
anyway.
neither of us slept that night.
Yeah.
But
well, that one got away, Tommy. And then you can think back to this podcast 20 years from now.
And your iMeave got away too.
Yeah, we almost bought an iMeave yesterday, but that's a whole different. That was $2,000.
Yeah,
that's more TFL money.
Yeah. So should we get to the headline of this?
Well, I think this is our headline. because it's such an interesting story.
And no one's going to click on this one.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, here's the headline, Cole, for this podcast. We almost bought the world's most famous electric car.
Oh, geez.
And then we'll get like
No one's going to click on that.
And we'll get a picture from the auction, and we'll have like us doing goofy faces. And I bet you people will click on it. It's a good story, we're kind of part of it.
The other problem, it is a good story.
We're
The
kind of a
story's very
footnote in it
interesting.
now.
No one's going to click on it. You know why?
Why?
It's got electric in it.
That's fine. Somebody at some point we can do one electric story without.
Well, if you're one of the 60 people watching this podcast, thank you for tuning in.
I think there's a difference between electric cars and the EV1. People understand what it is. There have been 2 movies about it at this point, not just one. Right? Who killed the EV1? But there's a follow-up movie on it, and so people, it's kind of in the zeitgeist.
Oh, Shuffy says this EV1 story is incredible. Chris says the Sacramento airport still has EV1 chargers. Yeah. Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah. So I'm telling you,
That's
there's
crazy. So EV1s use an inductive paddle to charge them, which is kind of the closest to describe it is kind of more or less.
Yeah, like 50% went to heat.
It's more like charging wireless charging.
It was so ahead of its time.
No, this was a terrible system.
But it was still ahead
50% efficient.
But it was an inductive panel. It's like driving on a pad.
Sure,
Anyway, you're right, Tommy. I mean,
these were so inefficient, by the way. You couldn't charge them on 120 volts because they wouldn't charge. You had to charge them on 240.
I mean, with 36 minutes left in the auction at 2:30 in the morning in Japan, I wasn't about to get a loan for an electric car.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I think even at 150,000, you're right. Probably at some point it might be worth more.
I have a feeling because I hope you also talked to the guy that bought it.
Yeah.
I think he wouldn't have stopped at 150. That guy was buying that car. I think you would have paid $250,000 for a shell of an electric car.
Well, we should have bought it when it was, in the house.
I know.
Paid him like $20 to tow it out of there.
I know.
Or they would have paid you $50 to get it out of there so they could sell the house.
That would have been the way to do it, 100%.
All right, well, let's keep going. So we were in Tokyo for the Tokyo Auto Mobility Show. God, I hate the word, but do you like the word mobility?
Japan Mobility Show.
Do you like that word? It's the worst word in the world because it takes what I love with a dear passion. I love cars. To me, they have always represented more than just a way to get around. They have represented freedom and sex and speed. And when you take that and distill it down to mobility, it's like it takes everything I love about cars and just makes it boring and bland. So but to be fair, there is a lot of mobility stuff at the Tokyo Auto Show. Probably the most interesting one was this little stool that has like 3 legs that is meant for people who have a hard time getting around. And you can sit in the stool and then the stool walks you around.
Yeah.
Abdullah from Pushing Pistons did a pretty good video on it.
Yeah.
Instagram. I think it was an Instagram reel.
Okay, let's talk about the Century.
All right.
So before we talk about the orange one, Cole, fast forward the video to the black one. No, sorry, rewind the video. I apologize. So Century is an interesting car, but now it's an interesting brand. So in Japan.
In 1960, they came out with a luxury brand to rival Rolls-Royce and Bentley.
So this is a 1964. This was the first model year, if I recall, Toyota Century. And you say to rival Rolls-Royce and Bentley, but that's not really the case.
Well, it was a brand that lived in the Japanese culture as something that like executives of companies would drive, right? If you were successful and you were wealthy and you wanted a Japanese car to be driven in, I shouldn't say drive, then the Century was your choice because it was built by Toyota, but it was kind of like the Cadillac or Bentley.
It's more like the Packard. So these are ultimate luxury sedans. Yeah, kind of like limousines. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. And the reason I don't say they compete with Bentley and Rolls-Royce is because they were never, for the most part, sold outside of the Japanese market.
Let me just cut to the chase real quick so you understand why we're talking about this. This car, not that one, is coming to a Lexus dealership near you. Now, Toyota has not confirmed this. We don't have this officially, but we're, I think, safe.
There were lots of winks and nudges happening.
Yeah,
so
I think we're safe saying
it's coming to America.
That the Century brand is coming to a Lexus dealership near you. So think about this when you're watching this podcast/video. This is a car that you could, within the next year, potentially go and get. So let's go to that white one before. Yeah, go back to the white one.
Yeah, so I heard it described best. There's 2 people that buy Centuries in Japan.
Yes. So this is a modern Century.
Yeah.
Which looks a lot like a Rolls-Royce.
2 people that buy Centuries.
Yeah.
The CEOs of companies and the Yakuza.
Oh,
Those are
okay.
the only two people that buy Centuries.
So gangsters and CEOs.
Yeah, exactly. So this is not intended to be like a Bentley, look at my money, I'm all flashy. This is like very understated,
Very
stealth wealth.
Japanese, yes.
Yeah. So this is the new Century. Interesting fact about the old one, it was the only factory mass-produced V12 Japanese car ever sold.
Do
So,
you like that logo?
yeah, I think it's fine. It's a phoenix.
It looks like a chicken.
It's not a chicken. It's a phoenix
It looks
rising.
like, go back again. So the funniest comment in my video, okay, I said it looks like a flatulent chicken because of those feathers.
God.
But somebody actually had a better comment in our video. You know what they said?
What?
They said it looks like a chicken that's being held up, being robbed.
Yeah, a little. It's a phoenix, though. I think is what
If
it's
you're not
supposed to
watching
be.
this, it's like a phoenix with these feathers and its hands/wings up in the air like it's being robbed.
So the interesting thing about Century and the way that we're likely to see it, it's not going to be like a Lexus LS competitor. This is going to be well above this. So you know how Hyundai had the Genesis, right? They called it the Hyundai Genesis. Then there was the Hyundai Equus. And Hyundai realized that people weren't going to buy a $100,000 sedan with the Hyundai logo. So then they separated it into its own brand called Genesis. This is likely we know actually, this is what Toyota is doing with Century. They're breaking it off into its own brand. Now, the thing about these Centuries is they're not $80,000 or $90,000. I think the sedan starts at $140,000 in Japan, and I think that the SUV starts at $200,000.
Yeah,
starts.
So you can see the similarities to a Rolls Royce there, obviously sedan.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go forward a little bit more to the black one, Cole. So that they just started selling this, I think, last year. The SUV is relatively new. It looks a little bit like a Cullinan.
A lot like a Cullinan.
But this is a matte exterior. I think these are hand built to some extent, and they only build like 30 a month, so they don't. It's very low volume. And you said what? These are like 300K?
No, I think they start at 200 is what they told me. But the key is they start when you start adding options and stuff. I think easily 250, 300. Yeah.
Now this one was at the auto show, but we also saw one when we were back in Japan. I think it was in February, and they have some really cool stuff on this car. Like for instance, the windows are those luminescent windows.
Yeah,
that,
you can
that
see
turn,
it there. It's opaque. Yeah,
that
the
turn
windows go opaque.
at a switch. And from this angle, it does look a lot like a Cullinan.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of Bentayga here.
Yeah.
But I think what Toyota Lexus brand is realizing is that there's a ton of interest, and maybe not a ton, but there's enough interest in ultra luxury, especially in the SUV space. And it's a market they're just missing out on, right? So the Lexus LX, that's the most expensive SUV that Lexus makes.
Which is 120.
Yeah, 120. But people are buying Bentaygas at 300. People are buying Cullinans at 400 plus.
What's under the hood of this thing? Is it a 12-cylinder?
No, so this is the only kind of disappointing part. Is the old ones were V8s and 12 cylinders. All the new ones are the twin turbo V6
The one that's in the
and
Tundra?
the hybrid. And I think the SUV is a plug-in hybrid.
The Tundra powertrain?
More like the LX powertrain because it's a hybrid. Yeah, I guess the Tundra's
Tundra's
a
also
hybrid,
hybrid,
too,
yeah. All right, so this is a concept. This is the Century coupe, right? That they came up with. Look at those crazy sliding doors. If you're listening to this, what makes it super unique is that the doors slide left and right like a minivan. They don't open up or down or out like a car. So
Yeah.
they're sliding doors.
Kind of like a minivan.
And this is
I guess.
really an interesting concept because it's a 3-seater, Tommy.
Yeah, so once again, Century's kind of been more about being driven around than driving. So it's a coupe profile. There's a driver's seat.
Which is kind of separated.
Yeah, there's like a divider, and then the passenger seat, it extends all the way to the back of the car.
When you say divider, it's more than that, right? It's basically a divider made up of like, I think they're lights. So the lights basically kind of hide, you can see them there, the strands of, I think they're fiber maybe, it might be illuminated fiber, hide the driver. And then the seat next to the driver goes all the way back and then swivels forward so you can get in and out of it. So basically it's like a first class or maybe a private jet seat that's next to the driver that's way in the back. And then there's another seat behind the driver, but the passenger has all the space that normally is reserved for 2 seats.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as is the way, it has to have a yoke.
Yeah, but this is still a concept, but the concept is interesting because it's a very, very large and imposing. I mean, the best way to describe this would be like a 1970s Eldorado.
Can I just take a pause here and do a little bit of a Roman rant?
No, I'm not done.
All right,
let me
and then
finish
I'll do my
describing
rant.
it, and
All
then
right.
you can rant.
All right.
So the concept of this is kind of like the return of the personal luxury coupe. the PLC. So it's really big in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. But essentially, you have like a 25-foot long car with a huge hood and a very simple kind of profile on how it looks. It's a beautiful design. I know exactly what your rant's going to be like.
What's my rant?
You're going to rant about how this is the same design as the Jaguar and 00.
And people hate it.
And the Mercedes
No.
long hood thing. Is that your rant?
No, that's not my rant. That is kind of the thing that's happening right now, where designers come up with one concept and then a year later there's 3 versions of that concept. My rant is that I'm sick and tired of designers taking really bad ideas that basically Tesla has pioneered and then either implementing them in their cars or actually following up with worse ideas. And this car has both of those. So I hate yokes. I don't think that they're very comfortable. I'm sure they're great in a plane. I don't think that they're actually very good in a car. Unless you're like in a Cybertruck and then you have steer-by-wire,
Well,
which
this
Lexus does.
This might have it.
But still, I like to rest my arm on top of the steering wheel, especially on long trips, and that is impossible with the yoke. And then Polestar took this idea to the worst next level, and they got rid of the rear window, and this also doesn't have a rear window. And I don't understand why you wouldn't want to have a rear window in a car that you're driving that lets you see out the back and see what's behind you. Now you have to have a camera. So it's like making things sleek and modern, not for the sake of functionality, but just for the sake of making them sleek and modern, even though it makes the driving experience worse.
Yeah, for once I do agree with your rant. Yeah. No, I think you're pretty much spot on there. There's the front end too. You got these kind of 4 headlight pods, which is kind of a Century design cue now. We don't know what the engine is, what the powertrain is going to be. But what's crazy about this, and this is not the first I've seen of this. You know what's unique about this coupe is when you think coupe, you think low to the ground sports car. It's actually pretty tall. This has got like 8-10 inches of ground clearance.
Yeah, it's riding on like 30s.
So they're going, yeah, it's got a little bit of a donk look. But they're kind of clearly, they know that people are buying SUVs, they're not buying coupes, but they like the look of a coupe. So they've built like a 2-door coupe SUV.
Yeah, but this is something that the Japanese have been doing for quite a while. So their demographics are much older than ours. And so like with the Crown, basically they're coupes that are raised, right? So it's a coupe, but it makes entry and exit much easier when you're older because you don't necessarily have to stoop down or squat down as much to get into it. So the Japanese have been doing this where they've been making tall coupes because their population is aging, and now they started bringing them into America because, let's face it, Toyota's population is also, or Toyota's buyers are also probably on the older side. But it's exciting. I mean, I have some problems with this. I shouldn't say problems. I have some questions, Tommy. First and foremost, and there's somebody who comments every time I say this word, and they say I use it wrong, but I don't think I'm using it wrong. The word bespoke, where you build something that is unique to whoever the buyer is, right? It's personalized. The problem that I have with it is that in America, and if you're not aware of this, this is interesting. Most car dealers order car. So the customer for any car from the manufacturer isn't you or me, Tommy, it's the dealer. So the dealer goes and orders the cars. That's why we've got such a boring color palette, because they're very unadventurous when it comes to like what color palette they choose. That's why everything's black, silver, white,
Although,
gray.
To their credit, when you talk to dealers about that, they say when they do order fun colors like greens and blues, people don't buy them.
Yeah,
They sit on the lot forever.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably. But what happens is colors come and go in style. Like right now, orange is the hottest color. You see it in everything, including the iPhone that I'm holding up here. And what they're doing is they're missing those trends by sticking to these really boring colors. What that means is that the end customer is a dealer, and then what that means in terms of retail sales is that the dealer knows what cars are coming, and then they can put those cars on their website, and then they have control over their inventory to a larger and greater extent. There are incentives for dealers to buy certain cars and not buy others. There are, especially like with Porsche, you have to sell so many boring cars to get 911 STs. There's a lot of that going on.
Are you good there? What's going on?
Andre's blowing up my
Just stop.
text.
Just take the watch off.
Yeah.
Driving me crazy over there.
I know. I hate when texts blow up. Don't you hate that?
Well, yeah, but then I just silence them.
How do you do that?
I don't know. I don't.
How do you silence
That's
it?
why
How do you silence it, Cole?
That's why I don't like the watch.
No, I mean, I could silence it. There's a way to silence it. Okay, hold on. I'm sure.
So here, do this. Just go mute.
Yeah, how do you? That's what I'm saying. How do you?
Yeah, but I don't think it mutes it on the watch.
It does mute on the watch.
There you go. Hide alerts.
Thank you. Yeah, it does mute it on the watch. Thank you for doing that. I hate that when it happens when the texts blow up, especially when I'm trying to do a podcast. All right, so Toyota doesn't work that way. Toyota, ever since Toyota came to America, has had regions. So there are different regions in the country, and the regions basically assign the vehicles to the dealers. So a dealer doesn't necessarily control the inventory that he's gotten. So this is where it ties back to the Century brand. So a Toyota, you can't really order your car. You can't go to a Toyota dealership and you can't say to them, I want pick a car or a truck. Let's say you want or a Lexus. Let's say you want a
GX.
A Corolla.
Okay.
Let's say you want a Corolla and you want it in dark whatever color, blue, and you want it with this interior. You can't do that because the dealer doesn't order the car from the factory. The dealer gets it assigned to him from the region. And the other thing that happens is that they don't necessarily have the ability to put whatever cars are either on their lot or coming on their website. So if you go to a dealership and you click on the cars that are on their lots, a lot of those cars aren't there because they're either coming or they hope that they're coming. And the only way that the Toyota dealer can get you, and I'm not sure if this is Lexus, but I assume it is too. So if I'm wrong about that, just correct me in the comments. But if you want to get a car bespoke at a Toyota dealership, they have to trade for it with another dealer. And that is a...
Well, now you are using the word bespoke wrong.
Okay. If you want to get, if you want to order,
if you want a specific trim,
yeah, you got to get it from the dealer.
Well,
but the dealer has to then trade for it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
and that's problematic because then it's a much more convoluted process than just actually going to the factory and saying I want a car with this color, with this interior, with this trim, right? And even Lexus, the only car I think right now that can be under the Lexus brand bespoke is there's a LC. I think it's called the Inspiration that you can somehow customize. I don't know what. I know my friend James was telling me about this, but that's the only car in the Lexus lineup that you can kind of sort of customize. And when you think about Bentley and you think about Rolls-Royce, these are cars that are ultimately customizable, right?
Sure.
When people spend $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 or more, they want what they want. And if what they want is, a purple interior with a pink exterior, that's what they're going to get.
Right.
And I'm not sure that the Toyota is set up to do that even under the Century brand. My other concern is that I think they are going to bring it into the Lexus dealership. And as much as Lexus does have some of the more high-end dealerships and it's a very curated experience, I've also been at Lexus dealerships where you get the guy who's like, what can I do today to get you into this car, right? And this is not the kind of sales process that somebody buying a $400,000 or $500,000 car wants. And we don't know how much the Century is going to cost you.
Listen, I would also pitch to you,
Yeah.
if you're buying a $400,000 car, you're never going to the dealership.
Maybe, yeah.
Ever. You probably don't even buy the car in a dealership.
Well,
you send somebody with your preferences to go buy the car for you. That's the difference, right?
And there is a cautionary note here. Volkswagen. Mercedes tried this like 10 years ago with the Maybach brand.
That was like 20 years ago.
Or maybe 20 years ago. So Maybach, originally, Mr. Maybach was one of the Mercedes owners, right? One of the guys who started Mercedes. And so it was a pre-war brand in Germany that was very famous, a high-end brand. And what they decided to do was create this brand that sat above Mercedes, where you would basically go and order the Maybach like you would order a private jet. So there were showrooms where you would go and you would pick the interior colors, right?
Well, it's like the Celestiq.
Yeah, like that, exactly. So they tried it and it didn't work. And now Maybach, you can still get Maybachs, but it's kind of a trim level. It's like an AMG. Instead of being like its own separate bespoke brand, it's now like the highest trim level on a Mercedes. So it didn't work for Mercedes. Maybe it'll work for Toyota and Lexus. We'll see.
I mean, I don't think that First of all, the Maybachs were just ugly. That was a big problem. And they were also confusing.
Look, you saw that.
Yeah, but look up a
you saw that Century.
Look up a Maybach 57. So they were their own. To your point, they were their own vehicles. I mean, it's just hideous. Look at that thing. Ugh. That's not a good-looking car.
Well, it was. I mean, you could.
I mean, they were really interesting.
Right?
Yeah, but I don't think people back in the day even thought they were very good-looking. The concept was awesome.
Hey, click on the one that's green with the line through it. The one below it. Yeah, that one. Look at that one.
Yeah, that's really bad. No, I mean,
You can pick up a Maybach now for like $50,000.
Yeah, but that's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, considering a Bentley of the era is 20?
But Bentleys have much higher, I think, brand recognition than Maybachs.
But why are they cheaper then?
because of the name. At some point, luxury brands are all about recognition, right?
Yeah, but then they should be more expensive.
No, Bentley has a much higher brand recognition. When you say Bentley, people know what it is. I think when
I
you
know.
say Maybach, a lot of people still don't know
So
what it
why
is.
is a Maybach 50 but a Bentley's $20,000? If
Because-
everybody knows what a Bentley is.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It has a much higher brand recognition.
Isn't that a good thing?
Yes.
But why is it cheaper? Why is a Bentley $20,000
No,
from
no.
2005 and a Maybach is
No,
50?
Bentleys are more expensive than Maybach.
Not a 2004. They're way cheaper.
I'm not sure about that.
Way cheaper. Try finding a Maybach for under 40. You're not going to do it. Maybachs hold their value pretty well compared to Bentleys or even some of the Rolls Royces of the era.
Well, it could also be supply and demand. you
Yeah,
know?
there's a lot fewer Maybachs
Yeah,
for
there's
sure. No, there's no doubt that the Maybach was not a success, and I do think you're right. I think that has a real potential for Century to fall into a similar trap. But there's a couple things going for it. I do think fundamentally, the Toyota Lexus umbrella holds a lot of weight to people, right? Because not only are you buying an exquisitely crafted car, you're going to buy a car that's built to last. And I think that's something that maybe doesn't prevent people from buying Bentley and Rolls Royces, but it is a stigma around them that the British brands still build cars that are not very high lasting in terms of reliability.
But I would not bet against Toyota. So,
Yeah. And it also comes down to, I don't know the full story because I was 7, but Maybach, I don't think they put the money into marketing it.
I just think it was confusing. I just think people didn't know what it was. They tried to kind of turn a brand that meant something in Germany during a really bad time for Germany in the 30s into a luxury brand today, and I think it was just a wrong.
It's working now though.
Yeah, as a kind of, like I said, as a model class.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't. Before you were born, right? The Japanese decided that they wanted to have luxury brands in America.
Yep.
And there were 3 that came in. There was Acura, there was Acura, which is part of Honda, Infiniti, which is part of Nissan, and of course Lexus, which is part of
What about Millennia?
Mazda's. So 4. But out of those 4, really one succeeded. Seriously.
Well, that's a bold move.
Lexus succeeded.
Acura succeeded. Acura did really well. Infiniti did really well for a while too.
Today,
Oh.
Acura is struggling. They have 2
Yeah.
cars that sell, 2,
Sure.
MDX and RDX.
They do sell a lot of them though.
They do, but they have 2. Infiniti has 1, which is a QX. We'll talk about that in a
80,
second,
yeah.
because there was a really cool QX I saw at SEMA with, get this. Well, I'll hint at it. It had a really cool powertrain. I won't tell you what it is because we'll show it to you in a second. And the only one that's like rocking and rolling in terms of having a lot of cachet and they don't have a lot of dealers. They specifically don't have a lot of dealers. Is Lexus, I would say. I'm not trying to diss Acura or Infiniti. They're just having a harder time than Lexus is. So I think if anybody can do it, Toyota can do it. But once again, the same problem. If you're a JDM fan, then you know what Century is. But
Right. Yeah,
I think
that's a big
99% of Americans have no idea what Century is, and that chicken being robbed is not going to it's not going to help with that matter.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to talk about SEMA really quick?
Well, let's talk about one more thing because I think this is important that we saw in Japan, and we did a video on this, but maybe you guys didn't see it. Cole, can you go to the Land Cruiser FJ? Notice I didn't say FJ.
You don't want to do the Corolla?
Yeah, we'll do the Corolla too, but I think we should talk about this very quickly. So we've been kind of following the story. Toyota unveiled the Land Cruiser FJ, which is this really kind of cartoonish but really cool and in some ways affordable serious off-roader. And what I mean by serious, it's not a soft roader, it's body on frame. It's got actually the other one that we profiled has snorkel, it has rock rails, it has
locking diffs. It's got skid plates. It's got a solid rear axle.
It's a real off-roader. The biggest bummer is it's built on the Hilux platform, and we assume that it will be sold where the Hilux is sold. And if you know anything about the Hilux, you know it's not sold here in America. We get the Tacoma. So I think this may be the next, and in some ways for off-roaders, ultimate forbidden fruit. That's why I wanted to bring it up. I was so excited when I got there because I think that there's a huge market for, let's face it, the current 4Runner, ours was 57,000. It starts at over 40,000. We just drove the new Woodster, Woodland, whatever the heck they're calling it now. We'll get to that in a second as well, these stupid names. RAV4, but that is not an off-roader. And So in Japan, they have this, or will have this. They have the Suzuki Jimny,
yeah.
and we won't get this. And I think Toyota should bring this to America. I don't think they will because I'm sure it probably doesn't really meet our crash standards or maybe even our powertrain standards because the engine is a normally aspirated. What is it, 2.7?
Yeah.
4-cylinder. But they should bring it, and it would sell like hotcakes. That's all I'm saying. Toyota, bring it. Don't make this the forbidden fruit. Bring this instead of that van that you want to bring in as a Lexus. Bring this in. What's your take on this?
I mean, I didn't like it in the pictures. I think it looked pretty dumpy.
Yeah.
In person, it's a lot cooler. I do think that
Look at all the people around it. Look how popular it was.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, anytime you put Land Cruiser in anything, I think it's going to blow up. I do appreciate that it does have some real off-road cred. That's what got me excited seeing it in person, and I think that it's an interesting platform for modification.
And when we first saw it, we thought it was like a K car. It's not. It's big. It's a few inches shorter
really
than the old FJ.
Yeah, it's about the same. I think it's pretty much, James said, the same exact size as an FJ Cruiser.
Yeah, it's big.
So it's a pretty large vehicle. It's very narrow, which is be a problem, I think, for the U.S. market. Like, you do sit very close to the person next to you.
But good for off-roading.
Sort of.
What do you mean? It's good. Narrow vehicles are good. They can get in more places.
People say that, but have you ever off-roaded like an early G-Wagon? They're pretty scary.
Because they're more tippy?
Yeah, they do feel a little tippy. But regardless,
recovery points. Look.
Yeah, the platform is cool. It's like you said, based on the Hilux platform. So I think that there certainly is a market in the U.S. Any kind of Toyota four-wheel drive is going to have a market. Would the market be big enough to, warrant federalizing this, dealing with potential crash standards?
Now you sound like Toyota.
Yeah, but that's the reality of the situation, right? When you already have Land Cruiser 250, which is selling, when you already have 4Runner, which is selling, and then this kind of cannibalizes from that market a little bit, I'm not sure.
I don't think it would cannibalize from that. I think other thing that people said is that vehicle is very similar to the Renegade, and this is nothing like the Renegade. So the Renegade started out as a Fiat, and then they tried to make a Fiat off-road worthy. This, they started out as an off-roader.
I think people mean the design looks like a Renegade.
I think they meant like the whole thing is like the Renegade.
No, I mean, you're right. The platform is not at all like a Renegade. It's got a real low range. It's got a real locker. But the design is very Renegade-y. It's very kind of bubbly and
it's
poofy.
Much bigger.
Yeah, but you can't see that on the screen.
I'm just saying the problem with the Renegade is first year it was out, they sold 100,000. And
they sold a lot of Renegades a long time.
And then by the last year, it was down to 20,000. And the problem with the Renegade was they built it on the Fiat 500 platform, which was never meant to be an off-roader.
Right.
And I think people here in America seek authenticity, and that was never an authentic off-roader. We owned one for a while. It was fine. It had a lot of utility, actually. The most surprising thing about it was just how much stuff you could slap in the back of it, but it was not a good off-roader. All right, last one. Let's look at the Corolla.
Hang on, before we get on to that.
Yeah.
If you guys want to ask questions, comment while we do this, we live stream these every week on Patreon, patreon.com/TFLcar. Huge thank you to all of our patrons that make this podcast possible. Anyway, Trey in the live stream just said the FJ was unveiled years ago in the EV lineup. Is it possible this FJ version isn't coming here, but once the EV version is made, it will be? Yeah, that's an interesting point because we did see kind of like some renderings of a vehicle very similar to this. That is a potential, Trey. Yeah, you might be onto something. I think it would be tough to turn this into an EV based on the architecture it's on. I don't think it's very accommodating to electrification. This is the IMV, I think it's called, architecture. But I think that there is a potential we might see an electrified version.
I don't think so, because I think that remember when we were in Tokyo in 2023, the most interesting thing they unveiled at that time was an electric truck. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
This week, the news is that Toyota is actually going to be building that. There's been some news dropped about the small electric Toyota pickup truck, and I think that is coming. I think that's real. I think there will be an electric, and I think that's what's going to take up a lot of
that's a pickup, not an SUV.
Yeah, but I think that's what's going to take up a lot of the air in the room, and not this thing. I think this thing, is going to go to anywhere else, where you get the Hilux, Australia, Malaysia, Southeast Asia, places like that, India. They're going to get this. We're not going to get it. We're going to get this little electric truck, but that's another podcast. Cole, can you go to the Corolla concept, which blew our mind? Because it's also, we'll talk about it, and then I'll tell you the bummer about it.
Yeah, so this was kind of the biggest news of the show, is this very futuristic looking Corolla concept. So Corolla, of course, best selling nameplate ever. They've sold tens of millions of Corollas, a vehicle that's known for its longevity, its affordability, but not necessarily its design prowess. However, this new one's crazy. It's got a lot of C8 Corvette in the front end with these very angular headlights. It's very low. It's very wide. Still clearly a concept, but not as concept as you might expect.
Yeah, the most concepty part about it, and if you kind of fast forward to when we show the interior, the passenger seat and the driver's seat are completely different.
Yeah, they're a little mismatched.
And the idea is that the passenger seat, you can look at the headrest on them, they're very different. The passenger seat is meant for comfort, whereas the driver's seat is meant for driving. So that's meant to hold you in place, whereas the passenger seat is meant to keep you comfortable. It's kind of an interesting concept. It was also in the Century concept that we showed earlier, where the seats were different. I don't think this will ever make it into production. Thank God it's got a regular steering wheel. And the big news about this, besides the fact that it was, just low and sexy and just really very modern, is the fact that it can come with any powertrain you like.
I mean, the reason I think that this is closer to production than you might expect is true concept cars don't have turn signal stocks. They don't have seat belts. A lot of them don't have mirrors, right? This has all of that. You can
This
see
looks like a Lexus and a Corolla.
Yeah. And I think the design is brilliant. And like you said, it's really great that maybe you can get it in electric. Maybe you can get it in gas. Maybe you get it in hybrid. So I have no doubt that a production version of this is going to be toned down. But I think the overall shape of some of the design concepts may persist into reality.
So that's the problem. So my dream was that, come LA, they're going to unveil this thing and they're going to say, meet the new Corolla, and I'm going to be wowed, and we're going to get this cool, futuristic, much more modern car that is more akin to a Lexus than it is to a Toyota. I think the fact is, and I talked to some people at Toyota, and the word I think is that this is going to be a Toyota for China. It's not going to be a Corolla. I should say a Corolla for China. It's not going to be a Corolla in the U.S., and we're going to soldier on with a much more pedestrian, maybe even mundane version of Corolla, as opposed to this badass, cool, because in America, apparently, we don't like new technology because, gosh darn it, it's bad.
I don't think that's what it is.
No.
I don't.
No, I think this is going.
No,
Look
I don't
at,
think
look at
that's the case.
Ducktail, how good it is.
I think the Corolla brand is very different in China than it is here.
I'm telling you, I've got on good authority. This is going to China.
No,
It's
I
not
believe
coming
it,
here.
but I don't think it's fair that we don't get good stuff and China gets the good stuff.
No, we don't like modern technology.
No, that's not the case at all.
Of course, it is the case. We don't like modern technology is electric tech, and we just rolled everything back on tech. The rest of the world is going to go electric, and we're going to be soldiering on with the engine that was discovered 100 years ago.
Modern technology doesn't mean it's only electric tech. You can bring modern technology to gasoline engines.
That is not that. I will make you a bet, Tommy. That car will unveil in China as a pure EV and will never come here.
That's fine, but I'm saying it's not fair to say that Americans don't like modern tech.
Apparently, we don't. I mean,
Well,
I'm just going with what's happening politically.
Why do you associate
You just said when we make the headline of this video that we can't base it around an electric car. And electricity is the modern, is the most interesting, is the newest tech right now in the automotive world. And you just told me at the beginning of this podcast that we can't because people don't want to listen. Don't want to know about it.
There's a fundamental difference between liking modern tech and not liking electricity. I think you that can very much coexist. I can like the 53-inch screen in an Escalade and like the over-the-air updates, and I can like all of the modern materials and also like a supercharged V8. I think those two, you can have modern tech and you can have internal combustion.
I don't think you can separate the two, Tommy. I know you like to be right and you're trying to split that hair, but I don't think you can separate the two. The fact that all this modern technology, over-the-air updates, big screens, all that was introduced by Tesla in an electric car. The two are synonymous.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I disagree.
they are.
Well, they aren't.
They are.
Well, then why can I get over the updates in a gas car? Because they're synonymous. You just broke them apart.
The over-the-air updates don't do the same thing in a gas car that they do.
Sure, they do.
No, they don't. Can you increase horsepower in a gas car with an over-the-air update?
Yes, absolutely you
The thing
can.
does not exist.
Absolutely
it does
you
not
can.
exist, Tommy.
That you can-
Tell me one car where you can get an over-the-air update and increase the horsepower.
Well, that's based Ford.
Which car?
Like the Ranger. That's an update, and you get more power.
It's not an over-the-air update.
Yeah, but it could be. There's no reason it couldn't be.
He always has to be
No,
right.
it's true. You can update a car and
Tommy,
get more power.
I asked you a simple question. Give me one over-the-air update
bet there is
where
one.
where you can update where you can update the car
Let's
and
see.
get more
Should we
horsepower.
Google it? I bet that exists.
I bet you it doesn't. I bet you it exists in a lot of electric cars.
But what about beyond just horsepower? All the stuff you can do.
Well, I'm picking the most meaningful thing. Sure, you could patch thing. You could do different screens. You could make, like in a Mustang, you could make the dashboard look like a 1965 Mustang. Yes, you can do all that. But the significant things like increasing range or changing the important dynamics of the car, the way that it accelerates, how far it can go, you can't do any of that in an internal combustion engine because it's made of hardware, not software. Whereas a battery, you can change the parameters of how much electricity comes out, when it comes out, all that.
There's more you can do with an electric car, but you can absolutely change parameters on a gas car to give it more power.
Not over the air. It doesn't exist.
Not yet, but it will. With that, but because fundamentally, software, right? Do you agree?
Yes. I don't want to argue.
But I think
people
it's
hate when we bicker. I've made my point. Let's just keep
No,
on.
I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm not arguing. I think fundamentally, if you can change the software in our
I
Ranger,
just don't want to bicker. Okay, fine. You're right. That's
no,
fine.
I'm not trying to be right, Dad.
Okay.
Let's be mature about this. I just think it's an interesting conversation that doesn't get said a lot. Like, yeah, electric is synonymous with technology, but I don't think it has to be. Right? I think what powers the vehicle is sort of irrelevant. It's what you do with what powers the vehicle that makes it
we
interesting.
move on to SEMA?
Sure.
Okay, let's move on to SEMA. So I went to SEMA, and I was there with Nissan. So thank you, Nissan, for hosting me. I really appreciate it. Once again, without these manufacturers helping us go to shows like this, it would be hard for us to do it because as YouTube revenue falls, it gets very expensive to go to these shows. So it's very nice that they bring, and in exchange, of course, we profile their cars. No money is exchanged. No one's giving us money to do these videos. In fact, I enjoy doing it. But my favorite video I did was this Godzilla QX80. What Nissan did was they worked with the California company.
Okay.
And they retrofitted this QX80. And there's a little hint here. It's called the R spec. And look at those quad exhausts on it. What do you think they put under the hood, Tommy? And you can
Yeah,
tell
it's got the GTR engine under the hood.
Yeah, it's got a massage GTR engine. So they put the massage GTR engine under the hood, pumping out, get this, 1,000 horsepower. How cool is that?
Yeah,
If you fast forward, you can get to the engine, Cole.
I mean,
Massive spoiler, shifting color.
This engine would be much cooler in a sedan. I don't know why they put it in the QX80.
Well, actually, that's a really good question. You know why they put it in
actually
QX80?
did put it in a sedan. Did you know that?
Yeah, you know why they put it in QX80?
Why?
Well, because at Japan, they unveiled a 6-wheel van. We want to talk about like what's happening with luxury in Japan? And
That was Lexus unveiled, not Infiniti.
But this is Nissan, so it's a Japanese company, and so of course they're going to put this in a van because in Japan, what we're finding out is that if you're going to be driven, you'd rather be driven in a van than in a sedan because a van has much more room. So the ultimate luxury in Japan, in a lot of ways, is a van, not a sedan.
Space,
and so
yeah.
it makes sense for them to put this in a van. Well, it's not a van, but it's a big SUV.
They put it in this because this is what people are buying.
Yeah,
But it'd be much cooler in a sedan.
I don't know. I think it's cooler in this thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, 1,000 horsepower, and they did a really good job. It looks like it's factory.
So
right?
they did a Q50, I think it was, a while back with a GTR engine. That was really cool because then you can kind of take the most of that powertrain. I think that this is an interesting idea, but you're putting, what is this, 500-600 horsepower?
1,000.
1,000. So it's a beefed up.
It's a massage. It's 1,000 horsepower in a QX80.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that all?
Yeah, I mean, I just think like these high performance SUVs, they just don't do much for me. Like, why would you want to make a brick go fast when you can make something that's designed to go fast?
I don't know. It's look at that. Look at those air intakes. It's just cool. It's just really
Yeah,
cool.
I think that, I mean, what's cool about this is the integration. The fact that this shop was able to make this happen, I think that is really, really cool.
Also, they're trying to make it, like a JDM almost, Liberty Walk,
Sure, yeah, I see the body kit and it's got
the body kit.
This is very bright
Japanese.
purple. Yeah, I mean,
it's not just a big engine.
I think it's a very interesting car. It's not for me.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Fair. It's very JDM, and it's very kind of Japanese approach. So in America, when we do a muscle car, right, the ultimate test of that, and you can look at the Hellcat, is on the drag strip.
Sure.
The Japanese don't think that way. They just want, I think, if they want they want the car to look extremely fast. Think of Liberty Walk, wide body, lots of fender flares. It's never understated. It's the exact opposite of the luxury. It's always overstated.
And they don't care as much about going fast?
I don't think they care
why
about...
did they give this 1,000 horsepower?
No, I don't think they care about going to the drag strip. I think they still want to go fast, but I don't think drag racing... And I'm guessing at this. If you know Japanese culture more than I do, please... leave it in the comments.
I mean,
to
all
them,
those,
the way the car looks is more important than how it performs at drag strip.
All those 2,000 horsepower cars are Japanese. Like those 2JZ cars that you saw. That's all Japanese.
But they're more likely to drift them than they are to drag them.
Yeah, I think that Japanese love horsepower just like we do.
Now, I'm not saying they don't love horsepower. I'm just saying their approach is more drift than drag.
Sure.
And you need a lot of wheel spin, right, to get drift.
Yeah, for sure.
And to get a lot of wheel speed, you need a lot of horsepower.
Right, but you're not going to be drifting this thing.
Well, it's four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
It could, but it'd be badass if you did.
Yeah, I just don't... I think it's interesting. I appreciate that they did it, but... Like, where's the G37 competitor, right? That's what would be really cool.
No.
Where's the G35 replacement, right? That's what would be really cool if Infiniti did.
We're gonna kind of walk on Andre's turf here because we're gonna talk about trucks for a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's go over to the Roush Frontier. That's another one that I did. So as you know, Roush is best known for working with Ford and building high horsepower. That's not it. It's a separate video. Scroll down. Just scroll down, it's in there. There it is. Yeah, that's it. Yep. So it's interesting because, like I said, Roush is more known for beefing up Fords with high horsepower Mustangs. What they've done here is they have massaged a Frontier, but there's no additional horsepower. What they do is they give it Olin shocks. They give it separate and unique wheels, a little bit more aggressive tire, and a little bit change of design and a Roush badge. And then it's factory because the Frontier, this is I'm talking with the head of marketing, I think, or product for Roush. I forgot his name, I'm sorry. But they build it at the Frontier factory. I think that's in Smyrna. And then Roush has set up a separate facility next to it. So it comes off the line, it goes to Roush. They do the shocks, wheels, tires, the cosmetics, and then it goes back to Nissan, then it goes to the dealership.
I mean, I think the obvious question here, and the question to see online.
47,000.
No, that's not the question.
Okay.
If Roush is known for supercharging,
I don't know why.
Why didn't they supercharge it?
I don't know why. He used to work at Nissan. Maybe there's one coming. I feel like they're trying to compete with the Raptor R in some ways, right? This is like, let's call it like the Tremor version of a Frontier if you were in, or the high country version of a Chevy.
They're trying to compete with like the Ranger Raptor, right?
Ranger, or
not Raptor R, Ranger Raptor.
Ranger Raptor, sorry. Ranger Raptor, except it's not quite that. It would be like
Pro.
Yeah, not even that.
AT4X.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about something more interesting.
Okay.
What about...
You're bored already.
What about the Ford stuff? So I actually think that Ford did something really cool, and I hope they put this into mass production. That guy is really interesting to me. So the Maverick is, they launched the Lobo, which was kind of this... they called it a street truck, but really it was just some suspension changes, wheels, and tires.
Kind of like the Roush Frontier.
Exactly. But finally, Ford did something neat. This is going to be, sounds like it's going to be offered from Ford through their performance catalog.
It's actually offered from Ford through their performance catalog. And so what they've done is they've taken not the hybrid, you can't do it to the hybrid, but the regular aspirated one, they basically breathed on it with a bigger turbo and an intercooler to raise the horsepower from 250 to 500.
No.
Yeah.
300.
Oh, sorry, 300.
500 would be awesome.
250 to 300. So they've increased horsepower by 50.
Yep.
And different wheels, different tires. Ford calls it the 300T.
Yeah, I think that this is a really good idea. So it's got bigger impeller in the turbo. I think it's largely similar turbo to the 2.3 liter Mustang, but of course this is a 2 liter. You talked about some of the cooling differences, but this is
There's also shocks. You also lowered it a little bit.
Yeah, this is what the Lobo needed, right? This is kind of what it should have been from the factory, and it's going to be 50 state compliant. It's going to be covered with I think a 36,000 mile warranty if you get it done through your Ford dealer.
Or a certified Ford shop.
True, yeah. Or a certified shop. But I think Ford should just offer this straight from the factory, right? This is what people want out of the Lobo. They want more power. They want it to be more differentiated than the standard turbo truck.
No,
it's
cool
got an exhaust on it too, with the little Ford emblems there. So this is a really cool truck, and I think that you can't have a sport truck without increasing the power. Ford finally increases power. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's no pricing on it yet.
Yeah, so maybe it'll be expensive, and certainly, like, their tunes have been really impressive. Like we talked about on the Ranger Raptor, on the Broncos, those create a lot of power.
A little spoiler.
Yeah, so this is neat. I think they did a really good job with this, and it's realistically something that might come into production,
You can't get it on the all-wheel drive hybrid though,
which is fine.
which is the one that we had.
Yeah, that's fine. This
Still-
is a
still tows-
turbo.
Still tows 4,000.
Yeah, they recommended. I saw in the press release including the 4K towing package when you go with this.
Because it has better cooling.
So this was awesome. I think that this is realistically something that a lot of people might do with their Mavericks to tune them up a little bit and make them fast.
Well, they did this with 3 vehicles. So in the background, you can see a Mustang. That's also interesting. So that's a 800 horsepower manual.
Right, and then the Raptor was a 900 horsepower.
Yeah,
I think
so
Raptor R.
in the Raptor R, what they're doing is they're changing the. I think they're going from an Eaton to a Whipple supercharger.
But I think those are a little further from production.
He said this summer.
Okay.
So that's going to go from 700 to 900.
Yeah.
And no additional changes downstream, which is interesting in the Raptor because now you're going 200 horsepower more.
Yeah.
Raptor R, sorry. So you're swapping turbochargers from, like I said, Eaton to
superchargers.
Superchargers from Eaton to Whipple. You're getting 200 more horsepower. Basically, you don't have to do anything downstream, which is unusual, and it's still warranted by Ford. So this was, I think, one of the more fun things that Ford had cooked up for SEMA.
Yeah, and then the last thing I think we should talk about before we end is the Toyota. This is on TFL Off-Road Cole. The side-by-side. So of all the things for Toyota to launch at SEMA, what they debuted was pretty crazy. It's a side-by-side badged by Scion. So do you remember the Scion brand from back in the day?
Yeah, I remember.
So they seem to have brought that name back in this pretty crazy turbo hybrid 300 horsepower side-by-side. Now, I actually do think...
Yeah, eat your heart out, Maverick.
Yeah, this seems kind of like a crazy choice, but potentially I could actually see Toyota doing this because of the huge success of the side-by-side industry, Can-Am, Polaris, but also Honda, which historically has been one of the chief rivals.
With the Talon?
Yep. This is called the Scion 01 concept. So 300 horsepower. It's got the same shifter as a Tacoma. It's got the same four-wheel drive knob as a Tacoma. It's got a lot of like the truck-inspired interior choices. But what an insane idea. 35-inch tall tires, four-door design. Now, interestingly enough, at one of the auto shows recently, I think it was at maybe Japan Mobility Show 2 years ago, they had a Lexus side-by-side, but that was really just a rebodied Yamaha. This seems like, and I'd love to know, is this...
It's not like a Polaris or a Can-Am underneath.
And they didn't tell us, but is this actually a Can-Am or a Yamaha
What's
underneath?
the powertrain?
It's a hybrid. It's their I think it's 2.4 liter turbo hybrid.
So the reason that all side-by-sides are 1,000 cc's or less is because it allows them to get past emissions.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so that's why you don't see over 1,000 cc's. So this would have emission.
But it's a hybrid.
Yeah, and who knows with the current EPA and the current legislation if that even comes into play.
Right.
But it would certainly make for an interesting ride, I got to tell you
But
that.
interesting, like Scion coming back as a side-by-side brand, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, or it might just be them, polishing off the brand name and putting it as something that's unusual and different. And I think people, really, really cotton to this.
Yeah, for sure. So would you actually be genuinely interested? I'd love to hear your feedback in like a Toyota side-by-side. It's a really interesting idea, though.
Well, Toyota doesn't have a power sports division.
But maybe they should.
So I don't know where you sell it. Like Honda does, and Honda has, of course, for a long time. So it becomes a question of how do you sell it? Do you sell it out, Toyota dealers?
Sure, why not?
I guess you could. I
Yeah.
mean, but it's a different world in a lot of ways, right? People who are buying cars and the people who are buying side-by-sides are looking for very different things.
I mean, this thing would be like 60, 70 grand, but wow, what a beast. It looks really cool too, except for the winch mount.
Expeditions are 60 grand. Polaris Expeditions.
The winch mount's terrible. It's kind of just
How
plops
much
out on the
is
front
a
of it.
Can-Am Maverick now? It's got to be
30,
close to
40,
50.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, let us know what you think of SEMA. We've got a whole bunch of coverage that you guys did over at TFL Now.
Yeah.
And we also have full walk-arounds over at TFL Talks if you want to kind of an in-person walk-around. Check that out.
And we should especially thank our friends on Patreon.
Yep. Big thank you to everyone at Patreon.
And any questions there? Any other comments that we missed before we... Any answers to questions that we might give to people? I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read it.
Nope, we answered them all already. Yeah,
All right.
talking about EV1 and also some other things. So,
Yeah, thanks for joining us for another fun episode of Car Chat.
yep, and we'll see you in the next one.
Ciao.